Okay, I'll entertain a motion for the board to return to open session,
So moved.
executive session, move second, roll call.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. I'll call the regular meeting of Town Board to order. Ask you please stand for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We started the meeting with the executive session to conduct an interview for the Board of Assessment Review. I have approval of minutes, January 3rd, regular reorg meeting, January 4th special meeting, January 8th regular meeting. Is there a motion on the
So moved.
minutes? Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Public comment on agenda items. Anyone wishing to speak on any agenda item this evening? Okay, hearing no one. First item on the agenda, Association of Towns Annual Meeting for the board to set the per diem day for meals. Is there a motion to set it as at $50 per day, which is what the board has done the past few years?
So moved.
Second.
Move second. Discussion, roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Next item is to set a public hearing on the property tax exemption for seniors and property owners with disability. The state has increased the income limits for the exemption and requires a public hearing. So, looking at the calendar, just so we know, regular meeting's on the 12th of March. So I'll read the resolution. Whereas the town board, Town of Cornwall, has a local law before it entitled Local Law Amending Local Law Number 2 of the year 2007, amending Chapter 132 of the Code of the Town of Cornwall entitled Taxation. Whereas the local law proposed to amend the existing provision of the Town of Cornwall Code granting senior citizen tax exemptions and exemptions for disabled persons. Therefore be it resolved as follows. 1, that the movement of this resolution does hereby introduce the proposed local law, and 2, that a public hearing on the proposed local law be set for 7:00 p.m. on March 12th. And that due notice the same is directed to be given by publication and posting. Is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Move, second, discussion, roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes. Motion is carried. Next is to set a public hearing on the tax exemption for Cold War veterans. When the Cold War veterans exemption was first passed, it had a expiration of 10 years, which the town board adopted at that time, and I believe, Steve, that goes through July.
Yes, that goes through the assessment rule for the year following the taxable status date, which in this case would be July of 2018.
Okay. I'll read the resolution. Whereas the town board of the town of Cornwall has a local law before it entitled Local Law Amending Local Law Number 4 of the year 2007, entitled Cold War Veterans Exemption. Whereas the local law proposes to amend the existing provisions in Town of Cornwall Code granting property tax exemptions for certain qualified veterans. Now therefore be resolved as follows. 1, that the movement of this resolution does hereby introduce a proposed local law, and 2, that a public hearing on the proposed local law be set for, we'll say, March 12th at 7:05 p.m. And that due notice of the same is directed to be given by publication and posting. Is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved. Second.
Move, second, discussion, roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, the motion is carried. We received a letter from the New Windsor Ambulance Corps requesting that Town of Cornwall designate the Windsor Ambulance Corps as the primary ALS provider. Our Cornwall Volunteer Ambulance Corps is a BLS provider, and New Windsor would be the first called and if there's a need for ALS. So I do have a resolution that'll read, resolution consenting to expansion of New Windsor Volunteer Ambulance Corps operating territory and service as primary ALS provider for the town of Cornwall. Whereas the town board has received a letter from the New Windsor Volunteer Ambulance Corps, NUVAC, stating that NUVAC has applied for an expansion of its operating territory into the town of Cornwall. And whereas the town board has been advised by the Cornwall Volunteer Ambulance Corps, COVAC, that COVAC has no objection to the NUVAC application. Whereas COVAC and NUVAC have further advised the town board that upon approval of the proposed expansion of NUVAC's operating territory into the town of Cornwall, COVAC and NUVAC wish to have NUVAC designated as a primary advanced life support ALS provider for the town of Cornwall for county 911 emergency call purposes. Now therefore be resolved as follows. One, that the town board approves a proposed expansion of the NUVAC operating territory into the town of Cornwall. Two, that the town board shall designate NUVAC as the primary ALS provider for the town of Cornwall for county 911 emergency call purposes without any compensation for such ALS services being paid to NUVAC by the town of Cornwall. Upon final approval of the proposed expansion, NUVAC operating territory into the town of Cornwall. And three, that the town's designation of NUVAC as a primary ALS provider for the town of Cornwall for county 911 emergency call purposes shall remain in effect contingent upon the pleasure of the town board of the town of Cornwall, and the town expressly reserves the right to withdraw or change such designation at any time without notice. Is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Next item is Village of Woodbury Water Quality Protection Overlay District. Steve, you've taken a look at this.
Yes, the Village of Woodbury has undertaken to enact a zoning change under which a overlay district is created over the entirety of the town and the village. The overlay district prescribes certain restrictions on construction or any improvements near water bodies that are above water. The notice of local law has just been sent to the town of Cornwall in case the town board wishes to make comment on it before the Village of Woodbury undertakes to enact it.
Okay, so it's basically just letting us know that they are looking to have a zoning change.
Yeah, I don't see that the water body protections that they are looking to incorporate into their code really have any impact on the town of Cornwall. Certainly none that I don't think would warrant sending them comment on the local law that they have. You just that they don't adopt it or adopt it with modifications. I just don't see that it's going to be impactful on the town.
Okay, we'll just note for the record, we received it and reviewed it.
Yes. Yes.
And next is a resolution on McGoey Hauser Etzel agreement for engineering services on the Cornwall Sewer I&I project. I have a resolution, the town board has undertaken to identify corrective alternatives for inflow and infiltration to the town sewer collection system, the 2018 I&I flow monitoring project, and requires engineering assistance in regard to the same. Whereas the town board has received the attached proposed agreement for engineering services between the town of Cornwall and McGoey Hauser and Etzel Consulting Engineers, DPC, it's MHE, in connection with the 2018 I&I sewer monitoring project. Now therefore be it resolved as follows. One, the town board hereby agrees to enter into the annexed agreement with McGoey Hauser and Etzel. Two, the town board hereby authorizes the supervisor to execute the same and all documents necessary to effectuate the terms therein. I think one of the things we are moving along with EFC in terms of funding for financing and also to seek grants, and this is one of the steps for that project. Is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Second. Discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Next resolution is similar for the Cornwall Sewer Plant Phase 2. I'll read the resolution. Whereas the town board is continuing to make improvements to the wastewater treatment plant, it requires consultations and advice in regards to obtaining funding for Phase 2 of the project. Whereas the town board has received the attached retainer agreement from the town of Cornwall, between the town of Cornwall and McGoey Hauser and Etzel Consulting Engineers, DPC, in connection with the Phase 2 to the Cornwall Sewage Treatment Plant. Now therefore be it resolved as follows. One, that the town board hereby agrees to enter into the attached agreement, and two, that the town board hereby authorizes the supervisor to execute the same and all documents necessary to effectuate the terms therein. Is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second? Discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Next item is a liquor license renewal for E&T Trends Inc., DBA Shamrock Tavern on Main Street. I just want to note that we note that for the record that we've received it and we are filing it. Next is Woody's Farm to Table. Same thing, we have a liquor license renewal for Woody's Farm to Table on, at 30 Quaker Avenue. And again, we'll note that for the record and have it filed. The wading pool refurbishment. The board will recall that last year we hired a pool contractor to repair the fiberglass in the wading pool and so that we could open the season, and the work was done. We opened the season, and then additional problems cropped up, and the pool company came in and actually found, I guess after 50-some years, the pipes had rusted away, deteriorated behind the concrete and underneath the slabs. So they did all the work to make those repairs, and unfortunately, we did have some vandalism in the wading pool this fall after the pool was closed, which damaged the fiberglass and all. So I think we've reached a point where, excuse me, we have to actually refurbish the wading pool. And it's in order to keep it operating, which it gets used fairly heavily in the season. So what I'd like to do is just have the board authorize the engineer drafting specifications for refurbishing of the wading pool so we can get those out as soon as possible and get the work done before the season really approaches. So is there a motion to authorize that? Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything we can do to prevent the vandalism in the future?
Well, I think the one thing is, which I've learned a lot, Tommy and I met with a pool contractor who did the work, and the fiberglass that's in there is more or less, it doesn't adhere to the concrete.
Right.
So it was relying on just being the shape of the pool. And unfortunately what happened was when the pipes corroded away, the water actually shot underneath the fiberglass, which made it more susceptible to being cracked. When you walked on the pool actually last summer, you were walking on bubbles. You know, the fiberglass was raised. What we're gonna pursue this time is a fiberglass but an epoxy that actually adheres to the concrete, so we wouldn't have that problem. Plus with the work we did on the new returns coming into the pool, that should really solve the problem. So if we go ahead with it and do this work, go out to bid, get the contract done, it really should last for a good number of years before we really have to be involved with it. So as far as vandalism, it would be less susceptible to vandalism because of the fact that it would be secured. So, okay, move second, roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes. Motion is carried. We received a letter from Verizon for the cell tower upgrade of antennas and radios out back. They sent diagrams and all the technical specs. I contacted the company that's handling this for Verizon to get some information. I provided the information to our building inspector, Gary Vinson, to review, because I believe, Steve, they require a permit
Building permit, yeah.
for the work. And Gary has attached a memo. I guess what their proposal is to remove 9 antennas and 6 radios and replace with 6 new antennas and 12 radios on the existing cell tower. And they have their plan of review. So Gary's satisfied that it meets all the requirements. I did call the company. One of the things I was hoping for was that aesthetically we could see smaller antennas and what have you. And she did say they were about 1 inch shorter. So I don't think we're going to notice that from any distance.
That's your wish.
That's true. So I'll read the resolution, whereas the town of Cornwall has entered into a land lease with Verizon for the construction of a cell tower on a portion of the town hall grounds, whereas Verizon wishes to upgrade its cell tower facilities to remove 9 antenna and 6 radios and replace them with 6 antenna and 12 radios of similar design and dimension to the existing facilities on the said cell tower, whereas the plans for the proposed alteration of the cell tower have antenna been reviewed and approved by the town building department, and therefore be resolved as follows. The town board approves the proposed upgrade to the cell tower facility conditioned upon the submission of an appropriate application to the town of Cornwall Building Department, the issuance of a building permit by the building inspector, and payment of all applicable fees. Is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Move second, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. I was contacted by Stephen Bender on behalf of his client who owns 3 parcels of land in the town. We discussed these at the work session. One is, runs parallel to Otter Kill Road, just off of Ores Mills Road, and it's pretty much the shoulder of the road that leads into the wetland. So there's not a lot there. The second one is a small parcel off of Creekside Road that backs up to the New York State Thruway, and I think that one is like 0.45 of an acre, but again, you know, for town purposes, you know, unless somebody has some ideas. The third parcel is more interesting. It's about 4 acres. It's on Pleasant Hill Road, near the intersection of Younger. The problem is, it's difficult to access the site, and also the creek, it's right along the Woodbury Creek, which frequently floods in that area. So the owner is actually looking to just turn this property over, as opposed to, I guess, paying taxes on it. It's non-usable to them. So, other than beyond the work session, if anybody, board has any interest, if not, we'll just have a motion to decline the offer of the parcels. Is there a
Move to decline.
motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Next item is the a resolution, well, for the receiver's undertaking of the tax collection. Steve, now you just touch on that, this goes back 30 years.
Yeah, we adopted, so we just usually adopted at the reorganization meeting. I don't know why it didn't go through this year, but whatever. The point is that the receiver receives tax money, and under the law, you are supposed to post an undertaking for the amount of the tax money that you receive to show that it'll truly and faithfully be handed over to, in this case, it goes to the county. However, the bond, because quite a bit of tax money goes through the receiver's office, would be very large. So instead, what you can do is adopt a resolution under which you provide that as the receiver receives money, it will be handed, as soon as it comes in, over to the county. You can greatly reduce the amount of the undertaking, which is what we have done. And we have here a resolution which we will approve a nominal undertaking with the, to be filed with the county to fulfill the requirements of the law for the receiver of taxes.
And this actually goes back, as I said, 30 years, in the mid-'80s, when we had the insurance crisis for municipalities. And it was virtually impossible to get a bond for the full amount of the warrant. And this was the alternative that was found. So I'll read the resolution. Whereas under section 25 of the town law, an undertaking for faithful performance is required from the town receiver of taxes and other town officials in regard to all monies or property coming into their hands. Whereas the said undertaking is sufficient as long as it is for an amount at least equal to the amount of money received and held by the receiver of taxes and other officers at any one time. Whereas the town has procured and filed such a faithful performance undertaking on behalf of the receiver of taxes and said town officials issued by NGM Insurance Company, 220 Salina Meadows Parkway, Suite 200, P.O. Box 4742, Syracuse, New York. Whereas the county has requested a formal resolution of the town board approving the undertaking signed by all members of the town board, and therefore be resolved as follows. The town board hereby formally approves said faithful performance undertaking on behalf of the receiver of taxes and other town officials as required by section 25 of New York State town law. Is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Does Renata have the form to sign? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay, I think it does, because it does say undertaking signed by all board members. I think we've done that in the past.
All right.
But we can check on that, and
yeah.
we'll email the board members, you can stop in and sign,
Mhm.
if there's a form. I think there is a form we have to go out.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I don't have it here. So.
Okay. I will follow up on that. Okay, next is a resolution for the Community Development Urban County Cooperation Agreement Amendment. This is for federal fiscal years 2018, 2019, 2020. This is for towns agreeing to participate in the Urban County Consolidated Program, actually, because before this was done, where the county did it countywide, each individual municipality applied for funds, and most of us didn't really qualify for much. But by having the money come to the county, and then the county has a program where they review projects, we've received a number of grants over the years through that. So
Do you want to read it all? Do you want a motion?
I'll have a motion to dispense with the reading of the resolution.
I so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion's carried. Is there a motion on adoption of the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Move second, discussion, roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. A request from Little League for use of the Little League fields to host 2 single-week-long baseball camps at the complex this summer. They're partnering with Frozen Ropes to run the camps. Frozen Ropes will list the town of Cornwall as an additional insured on their insurance. The camps will benefit the children of Cornwall as well as the Cornwall Little League. Cornwall Little League will take on the responsibility of making sure the fields are maintained during the camps. Thank you, Sean Watts. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Move second, discussion, roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Okay, a letter regarding parking at the adjacent highway garage facility. Received a letter from Ponderosa 4 Mountainville LLC indicating that they noticed town garage employees are utilizing their property for parking. They said that they have no issue with that, but they wanted to let us know, and that they want to thank for maintenance the crew does on the property at the garage. The board discussed this at our work session, and I've written to the property owners indicating that the town is not interested in maintaining any property, private property adjacent to the highway garage, and that the employees have been instructed not to park in the area that is deemed the adjoining property owner's property,
Or could be.
or could be. We did have that surveyed years ago and sort of understand where the line is, but just to go on the record that we have no intention of encroaching on their property and maintaining their property, so the letter has been sent to the property owners. Chief gave us a memo on annual towing inspections. Annual tow inspections were conducted at the following locations regards to tow trucks and facilities: Quality Auto, Michael Big Jr., A&R Body, Econo Towing, Heck Towing, Papaleos, Julian's 20th Century, Pat's Towing, and Priority Towing. All of the above tow companies are currently on the tow list and meet the requirements to remain on the list for 2018. An inspection was also conducted of a new applicant, Express Towing, and they meet the requirements to be placed on the tow list. I think we just need a motion to approve the new. Right. Is there a motion to approve Express Towing, be added to the tow list?
So moved.
Is there a second? Discussion, roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, the motion is carried. Next item is reaping the benefits of the Community Development Block Grant Program. We were approached by a resident last year requesting the town look at the possibility of improving the facilities to access the girls softball field and also the t-ball field. And so we had the board approved the engineer coming and taking a look at the work that would be needed to be done. We identified it with the cost estimate, and very happy to report that we did receive the funds for that, and now we have the approval, I think, to advance the project. So I'll read the resolution. Whereas the town board has applied for a community development block grant from the County of Orange, whereas the Orange County Office of Community Development has provided the town with a fiscal year 2018 community development municipal agreement, under which the county will grant funds in the amount of $40,000 for public improvements, a copy of which is annexed here too. Whereas the town board finds that it is in the town's best interest to enter into said agreement, now therefore be resolved as follows. One, that the town board approves and agrees to the fiscal year 2018 community development municipal agreement. And two, town supervisors authorized to execute the fiscal year 2018 community development municipal agreement on behalf of the town. Is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Moved, second, roll call.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion's carried. I will ask the engineer to provide us with information whether he'll have to put together, if we're doing it on the asset, we may do some of it in-house. We'll decide if we go forward, but if it's gonna require bidding, we'd have to look at that, or just a request for proposals,
Yeah.
for
Depending
quotations.
how much it's gonna cost.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I will get back to the board after I discuss it with the engineer. Police Department vehicle purchase memo from the chief. Respectfully request the town board consider purchasing a Ford sedan police interceptor at the state contract price of $27,498.60 from Van Bortel Ford. We budgeted funds to replace one vehicle this year. Typically, turnaround time from the dealership ranges from 3 to 5 months. This vehicle will replace a 2011 Ford sedan vehicle that has over 120,000 miles on it, and a 2010 Ford Explorer that has in excess of 80,000 miles on it. Is there a motion to approve the purchase?
So moved.
Second.
Moving to second. Discussion? Roll call?
Just have a
Oh,
question
Karen,
for
go
the
ahead.
chief.
I'm sorry.
How soon can we declare the other two vehicles surplus?
I'd like to get to the winner. Probably the next one.
Okay. Thanks, Chief. Okay, roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Next, I have a resolution on the matter pertaining to the village assessment on the filtration plant. I'll read the resolution. Whereas heretofore the Village of Cornwall Hudson filed a verified petition and complaint under Article 78 and Section 3001 of the Civil Practice Law, and New York State Supreme Court, Orange County, seeking to nullify and void the 2017 assessment of property owned by the village located within the town of Cornwall, County of Orange, and the Cornwall Central School District located at Palomino Place, Section Block and Lot 4-2-56. And whereas above, petitioner and the town's assessors, the county, and the school district have reached mutually agreeable settlement to reduce the 2017 assessment from $6,691,200 to $3,500,000 and refund to the Village of Cornwall Hudson taxes paid in excess of what said taxes would have been with an assessment of $3.5 million. Now therefore be resolved as follows. The town board hereby authorize the attorneys for the town to enter into and execute the next order and stipulation of settlement on behalf of the town for the assessment for above petitioner.
So moved.
Moved,
Second.
discussion. I do want to note that this is just for this year. This is a one-time, and
That's right, it'll have no bearing or impact on the assessments in upcoming years. We're hoping that Ron can sit down with the village and they can reach an agreement as to what the assessment should be, so we're not contesting this every year.
Right.
okay.
It's for 2017.
This is for 2018 taxes, but for, yeah, going forward, this is just a 1 year.
Right.
Correct.
2017 assessment.
Right.
Right, okay, right, assessment for the 2018 year, tax year.
Payable in 2018.
I believe this is
If you
2007.
read the top of the paragraph, it says the 2017 assessment of the property.
Yeah, it's
Correct.
2007.
The assessment roll, right, for the
Payable
taxes,
is-
right, but the tax is being paid in January, but you're right, it's
But it's the tax
2017
year.
assessment roll.
Right.
That was July 1st.
Right.
Okay, it's a 1 year thing, that's the most important thing. This is a one-time agreement. Okay, roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Next is Resolution Value Payment Systems. It's an amendment to the service agreement. I think this is for for the receiver?
Credit cards, we're gonna take American Express now.
Probably, and the town clerk
MasterCard.
also.
And the town clerk?
We're the only
Well,
two
in
that use
addition to-
value payments.
Okay. Whereas in 2012, the town of Cornwall entered into a payment processing service agreement with Value Payment Systems LLC, hereafter VPS, for the purpose of accepting Visa and MasterCard payments for property taxes. Whereas the town board has received the attached agreement, an amendment to service agreement between the town of Cornwall and VOS, which would enable the town to accept American Express payments for property taxes. And whereas the town of Cornwall wishes to accept additional forms of payment for the convenience of its taxpayers. Now therefore be resolved as follows. One, that the town board hereby agrees to enter into the next agreement and amendment to service agreement with VPS in order to accept American Express payments. And two, that the town board hereby authorizes the supervisor to execute the same and all documents necessary to effectuate the terms therein. Is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Moved, second. Discussion?
Quick question.
Yes.
I noticed that the town, or the village water department passes along the fee for processing, 2 point whatever %.
I think we do charge.
Do we do that as well?
We do,
Yeah.
we do
We do,
charge a fee.
yes.
2.45, whatever it is, right?
It's a $1.75 minimum payment, or 2.45%.
Mhm.
So we do collect. Okay, roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion's carried. On the Cornwall Fall Festival, I contacted the chamber. We had had the discussion last, at the end of the summer regarding the town having a table at the Fall Festival. And the chamber has agreed to provide the town with a space at no charge so that we can set up whatever groups, conservation, hopefully recreation, maybe economic development, but the town will have access to a booth where we can actually put information out to the public. So I just have a form to fill out and just a motion to accept the offer from the chamber to have a booth at no charge at the Fall Festival.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Next, we have two items under personnel. The one is a recreation position. It's after, I think, over an extended period of time, looking at the recreation department and what the needs of the department are, and also the, I think, the needs of the community, and reviewing how we've addressed some of these in the past. And although I think we were always reluctant to add full-time positions, but we actually have 3 positions in the town through the recreation department that I think consolidating into one would provide some consistency and continuity to the programs and in terms of the responsibilities and also the experience. We have experienced in the past that, you know, sometimes the supervision isn't at a level that we really feel that it should be. And I think part of that is a problem when you have, hire a different director for the pool each year. I mean, there's just no continuity to it in terms of understanding how it operates. The other thing is, we do want to expand the programs at the recreation department, and right now it's operated with Karen as the coordinator, and we've had just a part-time clerk in there for spring and summer. But I think this would be an opportunity to really be able to expand programs, as well as we've had one telephone line going in, which I think all of us, or most of us, have received calls from residents who can't get through to the recreation line because there's one phone. But that would expand that opportunity. We'd put a second line in there and have another person working at it. And I think one of the other things that is really crucial is the liability issue that we face with all the programs that we have, and that includes the pool and the recreation. While we do hire directors to run the programs and all, but the town does have liability. We have responsibility to the community to make sure that our programs are run safely. We want it to be enjoyable, but we also want them to be safe. And sometimes it takes a coordinated effort and monitoring to make sure that everyone is doing their job the way they should be, so that the participants in the activity, are safe and secure. And I look in this direction towards the pool. For one area that I think we all could be sensitive to, pools can be dangerous. And unless you have a staff that's really on their toes 100% of the time, it can result in, some serious injuries and liabilities for the town. As well as going out and being able, whether it be the new person that we'd hire or Karen, being able to go out and visit the different programs and to give some oversight and monitor it. So I really have recommended to the town that we create the full-time position to consolidate the 3 part-time positions and then be able to utilize that to expand the services to the community. If the board is in agreement, we will post the position as we're required to do so that any current employee who would be interested could be given the consideration of the board to have the first opportunity to be hired for the position. So, board's pleasure, I entertain a motion to create the recreation position, which would be called a recreation aide.
And it's gonna consolidate the market manager as well.
Farmers market, the part-time, instead of having a part-time, we wouldn't need a part-timer with a full-time. And also, the recreation department would then, 1 or 2 of the staff, and it would be this new person, would probably serve as a director of the swimming pool. And I think one of the things that, Helen spent a lot of time there over the summer, and in terms of scheduling, there could be some cost savings to the town by tighter staffing of the lifeguards rather than overstaffing, which we saw frequently, and just with the training. But yes, all 3 of those positions would be consolidated into the full-time position.
And what would the rate be, the salary?
Well, I think what we could do, we would put it out there, and anyone that's interested, and then the board could discuss what the appropriate salary would be, Michael. So that's something the board would make a decision on.
I'll make a motion to create the recreation position as an assistant to the rec director.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes?
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes. Okay, second personnel item is appointment of a member of the Board of Assessment Review. The board conducted an interview prior to the start of the regular meeting. Is there a motion to make appointment Jim Klein to the Board of Assessment Review?
Second.
Moved by Michael, second by Carrie. Discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes.
They're switching it
Oh,
around.
yeah. She's just checking to make sure that.
Sorry about that.
You're gonna get the crowd confused.
Okay, committee reports, Councilwoman Bunt?
Okay, so I'll start with the building department. There were 9 permits issued, 9 CCs issued, 4 COs, 1 demolition permit, 58 on-site inspections, 2 complaints were investigated, 1 notice of violation, 3 fire inspections, 3 signs were removed. Fees for municipal search was $4,500. Permit fees were $5,054. Planning projects year-to-date are 1, and there are none before the zoning board. So that concludes that report. The senior advisory committee has not met this year. They're hoping to meet in a few weeks. But Valerie and Karen keep the seniors active. Their calendar's quite full with line dancing and ladies' coffee groups. And tomorrow, we're celebrating Valentine's Day, and the Butter Hill children will be going over there to sing love songs from the 50s and 60s and dance for them. And they're passing out candy and flowers. Hector, bring Nancy. Bring Nancy. And that's that. We're still working for other events for them outside of what the regular things are on their calendar. The historical museum ad hoc committee, is that the right name for it? Met, and we kind of laid the ground rules and figured out what we want to try to accomplish. Unfortunately, it wasn't a full member attendance, so the next meeting, we're hoping might be this Friday. We're not sure if it's 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and everything depends on getting, what's it, 9 people?
7.
7 people, all with one night open. So, that's it.
Councilman Somerville?
Well, I have easy duty. The CCAC did not meet because of weather on Wednesday. However, in place of that, I'd like to make a suggestion. And that would be having department heads and committee chairs come to the regular town board meetings to do their own reports. Carla is unique in that she shows up at every meeting, and she usually comes into the public meeting section and describes in further detail what I've already summarized, or corrects me, or gives future vision of what the CCAC is doing. And I know that Bill Brain and Nancy Proyact, as his vice chair, would probably be interested in doing something similar to be able to present ideas and then get, solicit feedback from the public. We have a couple of new department heads, Tim in Building and Grounds and Kyle in the Highway Department.
Tom,
Not Tim,
not Tim.
Tom.
Tim's going.
Was Tim.
Tom.
That's Tom.
So we have 2 brand new department heads that people don't know very well, and I think they would really benefit both from attending the board meeting itself, as well as having an opportunity to, again, interact with residents who might have questions that they might not otherwise, know how to present ideas or questions. And on our end, it gives us a little bit more time to maybe work on specific initiatives, that will lower our expenses, lower our taxes, benefit the town, and focus on other things and allow the department heads to do their job. And perhaps we could provide compensatory time off for the 2 hours or so that they might spend addressing this group. But because, I often don't have a specific report to do, and so I paid more attention to what's being said, and I think the entire town would benefit from having that kind of interaction with all of our department heads and committee heads. So that's my suggestion to think about maybe for the work session.
Yeah, I mean, the committees do submit reports, the departments do submit reports that we have, and, I mean, if a department head came to a meeting and the board had a specific purpose to bring them, we certainly could do that. And the other opportunity is at the work session, which is a good opportunity. I mean, it's a time to have sort of the open discussion as to, what's going on with the thoughts and all. But I think the, lines of communication are, I think they're good. Wherever we can improve them, we will. So I think the main thing would be, Michael, if you get a monthly report, for example, from Carla as the liaison, that, you could use that as your monthly report to the board. Which is really the reason that we have town board liaisons for the departments and the committees and all. Not opposed to getting information. Carla is certainly not shy about adding to the conversation, and, certainly welcome at any time, so.
Well, wait, sorry. For the CCAC, our meeting was canceled, but I'm sure Carla will give an update on what would have occurred at the meeting and what's going to be happening at the next meeting, which is going to be rescheduled sometime this month. And the other thing is that I attended the EDAC meeting, and even though I'm not representing that, I just wanted to point out that there is a property for sale on Clinton, your building, the apartment building that
It's
you
got
have.
an accepted offer.
Oh, does it really? I was going to suggest that empty lot, and maybe it's not too late to even discuss that with whoever the future owner is. That empty lot could provide parking, additional downtown parking. It's not very often that there's an empty lot with walkability from
That has
that lot
been
to.
discussed and.
Well, the EDSA wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, I think it has been, and I don't know if that's a separate lot. Is it all one
No,
parcel?
it's all one
It's all
parcel.
one parcel.
But it may not be too late to have the
Yeah.
EDAC at least look at it, and if not the town, then perhaps the chamber, might front the cost at it's just throwing out a number, at $100,000 for a lot, it would be something like $500 a month to carry that on a mortgage. And that might be something that the chamber would be interested in either sharing or taking over, but
Michael?
it's not something they could actually undertake themselves.
We don't have a liaison to the chamber, so I would suggest that you really, if that's an idea you want to pursue, by all means, I would say go to the chamber and, you know, present your idea to them and all, and see what they think. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, you know? I think that it certainly can't hurt. I mean, it's one thing we are aware of is, there's always ongoing discussion about parking on Main Street and getting additional parking and all. Not an easy thing to solve. But no, I mean that in a serious vein. I mean, if you really think that's something that may be possible, talk to the chamber, maybe they would be able to approach the, you know, the prospective buyer, I guess, for it. Councilman Russell?
For the police department for January 2018, there were 805 calls for service. It was a busy month for accidents. There were 50 motor vehicle accidents reported. Residential and business alarms, there were 41. 33 ambulance requests, 29 disabled vehicles, 14 reports of suspicious vehicles or persons, 13 house checks were conducted, and 17 assists of other agencies. Also wanted to point out 2 arrests that were notable. There was a recovery of over $25,000 in stolen construction equipment out by Beaver Dam Lake with an arrest, and also a officer recovered a loaded revolver on Main Street, and an arrest was made in that as well. And one question, Chief, did you get any more information on Prima, did anybody else come forward?
No, and there actually was a similar incident occurred at Pizza Mia, 32 in Union in Windsor. Pretty much right before that one, so it was most likely the same people. That one, they actually took the pizza guy, but it fell out of the car and broke.
Oh,
Really?
They left, and there's no video.
Same vehicle?
So that's what the
Described as a
chief
gray
told us.
Jeep, ours was a black Jeep, so I'm gonna guess it probably was the same.
So, I mean, the statue in front of Prima was taken in broad daylight, 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Well, I don't know if it was really, it was like 5:20, so I don't
5:20.
know if it was that daylight out. But I think we got the report the following day.
Really?
We got notified. It wasn't like we got it right then. But there was same day and time, roughly, a few minutes before they tried to add a new one, so.
But again, I mean, as far as the community, if anybody has any information, if they came forward to the police department, it would be greatly appreciated. And it's a reflection on our community as well. So that's all for the police department. For sewer for January 2018, for Firth Cliff, there was routine maintenance. And as far as parameters, all parameters checked within limits with the exception of flow, which again was 3/100ths over the limit. Had a conversation with Mike from KMO today. And again, it's a seasonal issue with I&I infiltration into the system with, you know, from water. Again, that's something we're dealing with the different phases on the Shore Road facility. So it would be a whole another project to worry about this in Firth Cliff. However, it is something that we should be looking into because it will impact future development in that sewer district. So again, I had a long discussion with him today. He has some literature that we can send out to people in the district that might be advisable just to help us out by not putting extra flow into the system through sump pumps and otherwise, and also not putting any rags or other items down, obviously through the sewer system, which increases maintenance on both sewer plants. But that's all for Firth Cliff. And for Shore Road, on top of all routine maintenance, all parameters were within permit limits, so that's the good news. And
Great.
nothing from recreation at this point.
okay. Councilman McGinnis?
Highway Department for the month of January assisted sanitation as usual. Performed snow removal townwide on roads and sidewalks, maintenance of trucks and sanders, maintenance at the highway garage, removed the fallen boulder from roadway with the assistance of the village of Cornwall, cleaned and cleared drainage pipes and ditches to allow proper flow, and performed pothole repair townwide. The comprehensive plan committee will be meeting next Wednesday, that's the 21st at 6:30 at Town Hall. And at our workshop meeting, John McCary, the director, Orange County Director of Real Property, came before the board and expressed how pleased he was with the outcome of our reval last spring and the cooperation of our consultants, our assessor's office, and the state and county representative. He also presented information to the board on the services that his department provides several other communities in the county to perform their assessing tasks with assistance from those municipal employees, and had indicated that there are a number of ways that could be done with different personnel, a different number of personnel from the town or municipality, and he had indicated going forward that he and his department are willing to look into any option that the town may be interested in the future in terms of our method and means to perform our reassessing every year.
Okay, thanks, Kerry. On the Economic Development Advisory Committee, Bill Brain, the chairman, and I met with the planner that the town had retained. The planner, part of it was putting together a grant application. They're going to do it with the Greenway. But as a follow-up, we currently have the one grant that we are working on with the comp plan through the Greenway. So until that is completed, we're not able to apply for another grant. So hopefully, if the comp plan is done by summertime, we may be able to catch the next round when it comes up. And also, I've been talking to our engineer and also with the county with regard to enhancing pedestrian safety, that there's a grant application that's due next month. And Sean Arnott from McGoey Hauser Netzel is speaking with a few other communities to see if we want to do like a joint grant program or something. But we definitely want to try to get something in to enhance some of these crossings, and looking at the plan that we have on Main Street for maybe doing pavers in the center there. So this may be a way of getting some of those things accomplished sooner rather than later. The only other thing I was mentioning, the chief is going to be contacting the surrounding communities with regard to a intermunicipal agreement. Spoke with Supervisor Green in New Windsor, and he is in favor of participating in an intermunicipal agreement with neighboring communities. That's part of the discussion they're having with regard to some of the liabilities and all. So the chief is going to contact other chiefs who hopefully will be speaking with their supervisors or mayors. Okay, we have warrant number 2. Is there a motion?
Can I ask a question first?
Sure.
Regarding the grants for pedestrian traffic, Nick Moran had done a fair amount of work on cutouts for handicap for the curbs in town. Is that the type of?
I would think that could be considered certainly part of the pedestrian, enhancing pedestrian safety. I mean, there probably are some places that haven't been done where new sidewalks were done. That was
Right.
certainly part of the requirement. But we're hoping that we can pull together enough, enough of the, I'm going to say, different parts of the project. I'm really thinking in terms of, I like the paver idea for crosswalks. They seem to stand out. They've been done in Goshen, and it really attracts the driver's attention. So like I said, Sean is working on that, so hopefully over the next couple of weeks, we'll have some direction. Maybe even by the 22nd when we need to do all the interviews and all updated, but that's something that they can take a look at with that as well. Okay, warrant number 2, did we get a motion on that?
So,
Is there a second? Discussion, roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Public comment? Carla?
I have been in touch with the Orange County Water Authority regarding the natural resources inventory maps. I am told that the maps for Cornwall will be completed this week. And the NRI writing team of the town of Blooming Grove and the town of Cornwall and Village of Cornwall folks will be meeting tomorrow to further discuss the writing that we have done so far and make plans for the subsequent section, which is going to be on each of the individual maps.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Hector? Okay, here no one is there.
Yeah, just
Oh,
one question. Just-
Oh, you have a question?
Many years ago, they said by the bridge over 9W and Willow was supposed to be replaced or worked on.
Yes.
A year came and gone, and they haven't done anything.
That's what
Well,
they're
that's-
doing the
that's
test
one of the-
drilling for right
Right.
now with all the
Huh?
bridges.
Doing them all.
That's
That's-
why they've been doing that test drilling over there the
Oh.
last few months.
That's one of the three that's gonna be replaced, Hector.
Oh, okay.
They're doing the test borings, they're doing the engineering. They really feel at this point, they'll probably have the engineering done and get out to bid, and the projects will probably start next year.
Are they refacing them or
No.
replacing them?
They're
Complete
rebuilding,
removal.
replacing,
Wow.
completely replacing. So,
On that bridge, I spoke with someone who lives right near there, or a number of people who exit, coming from the north, and their concerns around visibility when they're turning left. So,
That's mostly due to what the county had to put up temporarily on that
For the walks.
handrail when they closed that.
so
It
it'll
is
be
very
better-
difficult, it's
it'll
very
be better
dangerous, I
visibility
agree.
after it's
oh,
complete.
it'll be completely new,
Right.
modern design.
Okay,
It'll be-
great.
Sight distance, I'm sure, will be fine.
Okay.
Okay, motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
roll call?
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Thank you. All right, Steve.